Heart of the savannah, dawn brings a quiet moment for a Caracal mother and her young cub. Protected within the earthen walls of their den, the bond is palpable, but the African wilderness demands constant vigilance and energy. To sustain them both, she must leave the safety of their home. It is time to hunt. The cub will have to wait alone. She moves with the silent grace of a phantom. Every step is calculated, her tufted ears twitching to catch the faintest whisper of movement in the dry grass. She approaches a solitary acacia tree, a perfect vantage point in this vast expanse. With effortless agility, she scales the trunk, settling onto a sturdy branch. Here, in the dappled shadows, she becomes a ghost. She is an ambush predator, perfectly evolved for this waiting game. She can remain frozen like a statue for hours, watching, listening, and calculating. Below her, the arid landscape holds the promise of a meal, if she is patient enough to seize the right moment. Soon, the savannah stirs. Savannah hares begin to emerge from their subterranean burrows, driven by the cool morning air and the need to forage. High above, the Caracal locks onto her targets. Her amber eyes are unblinking, tracking their erratic movements. She remains perfectly still, a master of discipline, waiting for one to wander just a little too close to her strike zone. Unaware of the lethal predator lurking in the canopy above, the scrub hares focus entirely on their own daily struggle for survival. They dig frantically into the parched, unforgiving earth, their sharp claws uncovering nutrient-rich roots and small tubers hidden beneath the dust. It is a vital, energy-dense feast that demands their full and undivided attention, making them perilously vulnerable to the silent eyes watching from above. The air is thick with unseen tension. Up in the gnarled branches, the mother Caracal shifts her weight ever so slightly, her powerful hind legs coiling tightly like a loaded spring. The long wait is finally drawing to a close. She watches intently as one solitary hare, completely distracted by a freshly unearthed bulb, hops blindly toward the base of the acacia tree. Step by cautious step, the prey enters her lethal strike zone. The wildcat analyzes the distance, the slight morning breeze, and the precise angle of attack. She knows she only has one chance to get this right. A single fraction of a second separates a successful hunt from starvation for her cub. Like a bolt of lightning, she descends. Gravity and raw muscle combine in a devastating strike. The hare is pinned instantly. Chaos erupts on the ground. The rest of the colony scatters in absolute panic, diving back into the dark safety of their subterranean tunnels, traumatized witnesses to the brutal reality of the food chain. From the shadows, they can only watch the mother swiftly subdues her catch, securing the vital protein needed to sustain her growing family. With her hard-won prize firmly clamped in her jaws, she immediately begins the long trek back home. Meanwhile, back at the earthen den, her cub is wide awake. Ignorant of the harsh, unforgiving laws of the wild, the little one ventures outside, rolling playfully in the warm dust. It explores its immediate surroundings with innocent curiosity, completely unaware that out here, on the open plains, a solitary cub is an incredibly vulnerable target. The savannah rarely forgives a moment of carelessness, and a new threat is approaching. A honey badger, universally renowned as one of the most fearless and aggressive creatures on the African continent, is out on the prowl. Its keen senses pick up a distinct scent. Scanning across the dry scrubland, it spots the isolated Caracal cub. Without a single moment of hesitation, the thick-skinned badger alters its course, locking its sights onto what looks like an easy meal. The cub suddenly realizes it is no longer alone. Pure terror sets in. It scrambles desperately back toward the supposed safety of the burrow. But the badger is shockingly fast, closing the distance in mere seconds. It arrives at the entrance, emitting a low, guttural growl of pure menace. The den is tragically shallow, offering no real protection. The tiny cub is trapped, backed into a corner by a relentless nightmare with nowhere left to run or hide. The brave little cub tries desperately to stand its ground against the massive intruder. It hisses, spits, and swats with its tiny paws, mimicking the fierce defenses of its mother. But its desperate strikes are far too weak, glancing harmlessly off the honey badger's incredibly thick, rubbery skin. The seasoned predator is entirely unfazed by this pathetic, fragile display of resistance. Ignoring the scratches, the badger lunges forward into the shallow hole, its powerful jaws snapping shut. It grabs the helpless cub by the scruff, dragging it violently out of the dirt. But a mother's instinct is a terrifying force. Returning just in time, she sees the horror unfolding. She drops her hard-won meal instantly. Driven by pure adrenaline and maternal fury, she explodes across the sand. She slams into the badger with devastating force, knocking the heavy predator off balance and forcing it to drop her precious cub. Seizing the split second of confusion, she nudges her cub to run. But the honey badger is notoriously resilient and stubbornly refuses to surrender a meal. It recovers quickly and launches into a relentless pursuit. The young cub, exhausted and stumbling, cannot keep up the pace. The ferocious badger is closing the gap, mere inches away from a fatal strike. Seeing her exhausted baby about to be overtaken, the mother Caracal makes a desperate, sacrificial choice. She turns back, throwing herself directly into the path of the deadly honey badger. It's a vicious, swirling clash of razor-sharp claws, snapping teeth, and raw fury. She risks her own life to buy her cub the most precious commodity in the wild: time. The fight is incredibly brutal. The badger is a relentless tank of muscle and unbridled rage, but the mother's fierce determination holds the line just long enough. Taking the narrow window of opportunity, the terrified cub scrambles away, heading toward the treacherous, rocky terrain looming in the distance. Realizing her cub finally has a vital head start, the mother violently breaks away from the deadly skirmish. Battered but unbowed, she sprints desperately after her young one, leading the dangerous retreat up into the steep, unforgiving cliffs, where she desperately hopes they can finally find sanctuary. The sheer rock faces offer a fleeting sliver of hope, but the honey badger is a notoriously relentless stalker, stubbornly refusing to abandon the chase. The mother and her cub scale the jagged, towering boulders, their naturally agile paws finding precarious purchase where the badger's heavy, digging claws begin to struggle. But their desperate, frantic flight suddenly brings them to a terrifying, abrupt halt. A massive, insurmountable chasm yawns widely before them, a sheer, deadly drop into nothingness, with only another steep, rocky outcrop waiting on the far side. They are completely cornered once again. It is a literal dead end, and the menacing sound of the approaching badger echoes loudly just behind them. With no other option, the mother takes a breathtaking leap of faith, clearing the gorge with feline grace. From the other side, she calls out, urging her terrified cub to follow. The cub hesitates, paralyzed by the dizzying height, but the badger is closing in fast. Overcoming its paralyzing fear, the young cat leaps into the void, landing safely, just as the jaws of death snap shut behind it. The angry badger arrives at the precipice, consumed by bitter frustration. It paces aggressively along the jagged edge, snapping its jaws and growling furiously at the deep void. But it is built for digging and brawling, not for leaping. The chasm is simply far too wide, and the sheer drop below is a guaranteed death sentence, even for an animal this tough. Defeated by gravity and superior feline agility, the fierce predator is finally forced to concede. On the absolute safety of the far ridge, the mother gently guides her shaken cub away from the cliff. It has been a harrowing, storm-filled day of near-death encounters on the African plains. But surviving the brutal fire of the savannah is exactly how crucial lessons are learned. Tomorrow, this cub will wake up wiser, stronger, and one step closer to mastering the wild